guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Nikki. I'm a homeschooling mama to an only child in 3rd grade. Today I want to talk to you about my July book reads. If that is something that interests you, please keep watching. Hit that subscribe button down below and that bell to notify you of any future videos of mine. Usually I dive into full-on homeschool content and motherhood and all that. But today I'm giving you my personal book recommendations for the month of July. Alright, so today is literally July 31st. So I completed my final book of July, and I wanted to wait to make this video until I knew I was going to be done with this book today. Because I tried in literal 3 days to get this book done, because it was an extremely long book, probably the longest book I've probably ever read. Maybe, I don't know, I read a lot on Kindle, so it's hard to see like thickness wise, but anyways, I want to tell you about the first book that I picked up this month. So I had picked up Called Upon. Now I forget who I saw, friend or someone, and I loved the cover. I think it's a gorgeous cover. So this book is told from the perspective of 3 unconnected teenagers called upon barrels through a series of twists and turns that merge together into a story. So let me just tell you a little bit about it. It says, Caitlin, the social para of her high school, is so relieved to have made friends at Camp Overlook and to have caught the attention of a real, live, honest-to-goodness boy that she is willing to look past the camp's anomalies. Creepy, gray-eyed counselors, 24-hour video surveillance, and campers falling ill and then disappearing quietly into the night. But when Caitlin begins feeling strange symptoms herself, she can no longer pretend that Overlook is a run-of-the-mill summer camp. She and her new friends must race to solve the mystery of Camp Overlook, even if it means facing some difficult triumphs and uncovering some painful family secrets before she is the next camper to vanish. So I still have my bookmark in here. That is literally how far I got. Not far at all. I blame July. It was a heavy travel month for me, and not really in places that I could pick up a book and just like read on vacation. These vacations were not relaxing vacations, so I did not have time, and then it kind of just got away from me, but I only made it to page 29. I want to say it seems promising. It's not my typical book that I like that grabs me in right away. It's, I don't want to say a whiny teenager in the beginning, because she's not really whiny, but these are teenagers, so we have to remember that as we read. But I do want to get back to it. I think it is totally up my alley of a book to read. I just haven't been drawn to it. So as much as I want to review this and tell you I give it a star, like I can't do that. Obviously, I only got to page 30. But I do want to say it does seem really promising, and I am going to try to get this in August, before our next vacation. Yeah, Called Upon. Read it. Have you read it? If you haven't, are you going to? I'm probably the worst reviewer because I can't really review this one, but I wanted to show you at least what I've kind of started. Couldn't finish because I didn't have time. Anyway, next book is while I was on vacation, because I didn't have my vacation other book with me. I saw this in Target, and I've actually been on my list on Amazon for quite some time, and I've never just bit the bullet and bought it. But then I saw it in Target, and I was like, oh, like the gods were shining down. And I was like, okay, I'll buy it. Got it. God spoke to me, and I was like, I need to get this book. This book's getting donated. If I could rate it based on the literal 5 chapters I read, I would rate it a 1 star for sure. not a fan of the writing style. I have never read anything by E. Lockhart before. But man, the first 5 chapters were not doing it. I mean, they were not doing it, and I can tell as to what I'm talking about. So they're very short chapters, by the way. So like, I didn't get very far in the book. I don't even know how to describe this book. So chapter is being written from an 18-year-old or an almost 18-year-old who lives in Vermont with her mummy and 3 dogs. And I mean, the story starts before the accident, and that June, Dad announced he was leaving, departed 2 days later. He told my mother he wasn't a Sinclair and couldn't try to be one any longer. He couldn't smile, couldn't lie, couldn't be a part of the beautiful family in those beautiful houses. Couldn't. And then this is the part that I couldn't get with the program, because I was so taken back from this line. He pulled out a handgun and shot me in the chest. I was standing, okay, wait, back up. Let me go up the paragraph before. He had hired moving vans already. He'd rented a house. My father put a last suitcase into the backseat of his Mercedes. He was leaving Mummy with only the Saab and started the engine. Here's the line I'm telling you about. Then he pulled out a handgun and shot me in the chest. I was standing on the lawn and I fell. The bullet hole opened wide and my heart rolled out of my ribcage and down into a flower bed. Blood gushed rhythmically from my open wound, then from my eyes, my ears, my mouth. It tasted like salt and failure. The bright red shame of being unloved soaked the grass in front of the house and the bricks of the path, the steps of the porch. My heart spasmed against the peonies like a trout. Mummy snapped. She said to get a hold of myself. Be normal now, she said, right now. Because you are, because you can be, because don't cause a scene. And she told me, breathe and sit up. I did what she asked. She was all I had left. She tilted our square chins high as Dad drove down the hill. Then we went indoors and trashed the gifts that he'd given us, jewelry, clothes, books, anything. In the days that followed, we got rid of the couch and armchairs my parents bought together, tossed the wedding china, the silver, the photographs. Hired a decorator, spent the day walking through our galleries and bought paintings to cover the empty faces on the wall. Then we packed our bags and went to Beechwood Island. I get this metaphorical thing of like being shot and feeling, but like something about that just didn't, I didn't like I don't know. I'm a writer, so that just kind of peeved me. But it's talking about so many people. They have so many names in this book that I was just like, wowza, how am I supposed to keep up with that? Me, Johnny, Miriam, Kat, Miran, Johnny, and me. The family calls us the 4 liars, and probably we deserve it. We're all nearly the same age, blah, blah, blah. Carrie, I mean, I just, it was almost like poetic in a way. I don't know. It just was not my cup of tea, and I honestly could not get past like the first several chapters. Maybe it gets better. Please let me know if you have read this. This is basically about the Sinclairs. They live, at least in the summertime, on a private island off the coast of Massachusetts. Perhaps it's all you need to know, except that some of us are liars. Like, that's literally the blurb. I don't know. Not my cup of tea. Let me know if you've read it. It's getting donated. Unless you could change my mind. Anyways. I feel like I'm showing you all fails right now. So I absolutely loved Red Mountain. The very first book that I read in the series called Red Mountain. I don't know if there's another title to it. I think it's just called Red Mountain. And I did like kind of my thoughts on that in my summer read video, which I can happily link somewhere around here. And this is the second in the series. Now, I don't know if it's because I was leaping from that book, and some of these thrillers that I was reading has just got my mind off of these like calm, collected, not thrillery type books, that I couldn't get into the second book. I do plan to try to pick it back up though. I just haven't been in a need a break from my thriller type book. So this is the second book. It's still on my list. Honestly, I only read a few pages. I was like, oh, do I really want to dive back into these characters' heads and find out what happens? And I do, just not right now. Maybe in the winter, I don't know. Next book up that I have here is the first book that I have finished that I'm going to tell you about today. I know, I feel ridiculous. But it was called, oh no, why can I not remember? I don't have it in a physical copy. Shoot. So as I was going on vacation, the first vacation I was on, I thought I'd read a book on the plane. Worst freaking choice I ever made. It was In the Likely Event by Rebecca Yarros. I read it on Kindle, so I can put a picture here. I do believe the paperback is officially out now, but it wasn't when I read it, or started to read it. So at first I was like, this sounds like a great book. And then they're getting on a plane, and then the unimaginable happens on a plane, and I'm like slowly stopping to read it as I don't have a mild heart attack sitting in my seat. So like, spoiler alert, a plane goes down. Let's just say that. And I was so sucked into this book right from the get-go. It's definitely a book that grabs you and just like constantly has you guessing what's going to happen next. And it's not a thriller. This was like, I would consider like a romantic suspense if I had to guess genre, because I don't know it. I didn't look it up, but 5 stars. 5 ever-loving stars. I love those characters so much. So I don't want to give away, because like names kind of change around in the book, so I don't want to give too much away, other than the fact that it's basically a couple who meets on a plane. Something happens to said plane, and it's almost like they're bonded by this tragedy, right? And they're trying like desperately to keep the bond. They end up in very, very scary situations going forward. His job plays a role, her job plays a role, and they're literally like fighting for their life by the end. So very gripping story, and keeps the momentum going throughout the entire book. Like, I could not stop reading it. Totally worth all 5 stars. So go read that. I don't have the description here, but I can pause this and put it up on the screen because it's on my Kindle. I apologize. But I knew the author for another reason, and that is my last book I'm going to talk about. But anyway, I decided, my friend Ashley, you know, my YouTube bestie, she was like, what should I read next? And I spotted Verity on her bookcase, and I have Verity. Never read it. It was actually on my Kindle since forever, like years, I think, at this point. And I'm like, I've never read it. Like, I'd love to read it. We should read it together. So we did. And we both finished this book in like, was it 24 hours, 48 hours? It was literally like 2 days. And it was so fun because like at one point I was ahead of her, and then she was ahead, and then like we were like begging for the other one to get through certain scenes so we could talk about it. It was a lot of fun. So this was definitely what I would consider a thriller. This is probably about 4.5 stars from me out of 5. Loved the book, did not care too much for the ending. This is about an author who gets hired on to finish a series for another author who was in a very tragic accident. Tragic, maybe not tragic is the right word, but well, I guess you could use it as tragic. Very bad accident. And so the author is currently unable to write the rest of a series of her books, so she hires, or her publishing and all those companies, they go together and they hire someone else to finish the series, and they pick Lowen, and she's kind of like not a popular author, and this other person who got in the accident was like really a popular author. So Lowen's like, why are you picking me? Like, you know, and the story deepens, and there's points where you're like, ooh, I like that. And then there's points where it's like, oh, that feels wrong to like that. And then you're like cheering for them, and then you're not. And then it's like, oh man. And it's like really intense in some parts. And then I had legit had to stop reading the one night because I was it's gonna sound really silly, but I was scared to finish it in the dark in my bedroom at like midnight. I couldn't read it. It was getting creepy. And it's not like a gory, like gruesome book by any means. It was literally just like a really creepy scene. So yeah, can't say I've had that happen in quite a long time, probably since I was a kid, but here we are. Verity. This is my first Colleen Hoover book. I was impressed. Again, 4.5, just, or 4.5, just because I felt there could be more. This was a very easy read. It's not very long. It was like 300 pages. Yeah, like roughly 300 pages. So very quick for me to read, and apparently Ashley. But it kept me on the edge of my seat. I needed to know more. I needed to keep reading, and that's what I love about a book. And if a book can do that, like, by all means, it has my attention. But I just needed more at the end. I felt like there's certain things that could have been wrapped up a little bit better and stuff like that. So anyway, 4.5 stars. Go read it. Verity. Lastly, I have what Ashley forced me to read. She had already read it, and she was like, oh my god, I finished it and I'm like broken and I can't live another day in my life. Please read the book so we can talk about it. So I bought it. This book is talked about everywhere. I am sure you've heard it if you're a fiction reader. It is literally like a 500-page book, and a genre that I will say I have really never dabbled into. I would say this is like a fantasy romance. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess you could say fantasy romance. But the characters are really fun. They're young. They're like, the angst in this book, because this is Rebecca Yarros, and I read her other book, In the Likely Event, the angst in that book, and in this book, she writes angst. Like, that girl can write some angst. So if you're into that kind of thing, pick it up. Out of my genre, it has dragons. Fly or die. A dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A rider without the dragon is dead. Article 1, Section 1, and the Dragon Rider's Cortex. So this is like a war book. And they're literally being sent off to college for war, basically. And only the toughest survive, and even the tough still die. So it's intense. The dragons are really, really cool, which, again, something I never would have pictured me enjoying. I did like Hunger Games and all that, but that's more... I don't even want to say Hunger Games is more realistic, but it doesn't have dragons. So like, you know, Hunger Games was up there, Twilight was up there back in my day, but this stole my heart, and I would probably give this a solid 4 stars. I suck as a reader because I'm a writer, so I can see things kind of differently than a reader's perspective on things. But there was the last 30% of the book was where that heat of the book for me really was, And I just wish that I had more of that heat throughout the book a little bit more. But needless to say, I'm still giving it 4 flippin' stars. So that's pretty high in my book. I was obsessed. I had to finish it. I did want to know what the characters would happen. The end hit a shock. I called it. I really just had this feeling, and I have another feeling for the next book that's coming out, I think in November. But yeah, I really loved the storytelling, and like the imagination goes flying with this book. And I was kind of confused because there's so much technical term to the city and the continents and the territory that it was kind of a little hard to keep up with. And I almost like wanted to like have a map and start like mapping things out as they like went through where they were going to be fighting and stuff like that. So I had a more idea behind it. And a lot of like, you know, when she's nervous, the main character like spews out facts. And so it was like trying to remember some of the facts she was saying, because they do end up becoming somewhat of a prominent role throughout the book. But just stuff like that. Like I felt like I needed to like have a map and like, you know, notes. Like I needed to highlight and take notes. There's just so much. I mean, it's 500 pages. It's thick. It's a lot. It's a lot. I don't know that I've ever read something as thick as this before, but it was really worth the read. Oh, that's so funny. How did I not see this the 2 days that I've been reading it? It has a map in the cover. Hello. How awesome. Did not realize that. Is there one in the back too? There's one in the back. Oh, it's the same one. I got all excited, but I think it's the same one. But anyway, really good. Really good. Really good. I'll read you the back. Anyone else feels like changing their mind? Thane shouts, scanning the remaining rows of cadets with the same shrewd gaze of the navy blue dragon behind him. No? Excellent. Roughly half of you will be dead by this time next summer. The formation is silent except for a few untimely sobs from my left. A third of you again, and the year after that, and the same your last year. No one cares who your mom or your daddy is here. Even King Turi's second son died during threshing. So tell me again, do you feel invincible now that you've made it into the Riders Quadrant? Untouchable? Elite? No one cheers. Another blast of heat rushes, this time directly at my face, and every muscle in my body clenches, preparing for incineration. But it's not flames, just steam, and it blows back Renon's braids as the dragons finish their simultaneous exhale. They want us scared, mission accomplished. These are kind of just like quotes from the book. So like, that's not what it's about. Just kidding. All books are so different with how they do things. So the synopsis is actually on the inside of the book, but I'm not going to read it since I just read to you the back. Some of the quotes. They are dragon riders, and they are training to be in the Riders Quadrant. It is brutal. There is killing, death, lots of death, and a fiery, angsty love is definitely in this book. Go read it. I believe, like I said, the next one is coming out in November. So I have a few books up my sleeve for August, and I'm pretty stoked. I'm excited. Do people say stoked anymore? I don't know. Anyways, if you're a reader, I have a couple here, like 2 out of 5 that I can recommend. But you know what? You got to take the good with the bad, right? Like, there are just some books that you're going to read and you're just like, not for me. And you got to be okay with that and be fine. And, you know, take that with a grain of salt. If you want to try it, you are more than welcome to pick up the book and try it. I just don't recommend it. Anyways, I'm mumbling and jabbling because I'm on a high after finishing this book. So anyways, that is it, my friends. If you like this video, if you want more of these, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what your favorite summer read, July read, whatever you want to call it, in the comments below, and I'll see you in my next video.